one more thing going against California. Governor Newsom's proposed retroactive billionaire tax. Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't 220 billionaires just stay put and say, yeah, whatever, just go ahead and tax the F out of us. Just go ahead and tax us. Why wouldn't they do that? Well, because they're billionaires, they have money, and they're going to leave. Just one more embarrassing thing California has going on. This is literally one of the ideas to generate more tax revenue because they've taxed everybody else up to here, and they got nothing left. Let's get into it. Here we go. Main article we're reading from today is Stick a Fork in California? Governor Newsom's proposed retroactive billionaire tax. Every time I turn around, these blue-run states are coming up with somehow to basically they're targeting the rich. They're targeting business, progressive revenue. We keep hearing that. We hear that from Mom Dunny. We hear that from Katie Wilson in Seattle. We hear that from Let's Go Brandon Johnson in Chicago. Progressive revenue. Because and it's not because they aren't generating enough income already. Washington State has doubled its revenue. You got lots of taxpayers paying into the system. You're just spending it on ridiculous stuff you don't need to be. But instead of cutting programs, we're going after even more money by taxing people who are creating the jobs, businesses that are going to leave. So, I mean, to propose taxing billionaires, to me, is the utmost in virtue signaling. Because why would you do that? Some of those people, have some massive amounts of wealth, and you are just begging them to leave, to go and take their money with them. Washington State, we're doing the exact same thing. You got a bunch of nut jobs running either at the state level or county level or the city level. You got a socialist for mayor. Tell me how that works. Tell me how that is going to be good for Seattle. Tell me how any of this is good for Washington. It's not. Same deal with California. You're just absolutely taxing people up to the brim. And then people leave. And we're going to talk about, how many of them are leaving. One of the articles I saw earlier, doing research for this bad boy, was every single minute Gavin Newsom has been in office, one taxpayer has left California every minute. That's per IRS data. Every 2 minutes and change, Texas and Florida gets a new taxpayer. So since I've been talking, what are we? We're 4 minutes in. 4 people have left California, and Texas and Florida have each gotten 4. No, they've each gotten 2. They've gotten 4. That's what I meant to say. Right? Yeah. All right. Anyway, California Governor Gavin Newsom is pushing a retroactive billionaire tax targeting the roughly 220 billionaires residing in California in 2025, ignoring that these individuals are the most financially mobile and can live anywhere. Washington State, Jeff Bezos. Washington has made it very, very clear that they don't want to have any people of any substance in the state anymore, so they're just going to tax the absolute you-know-what out of them. Now, Jeff Bezos saved $1 billion and said, yep, I'm leaving Washington State and I'm going to Florida. He literally made that move because he can, because he's like, screw you guys. Why would I give you my taxpayer money where I can go to someplace more affordable that's more red, that's more in line with what I'm doing, with where I want things to be going? And anybody that's a billionaire, they're going to look at this and go, okay, all right, when do we leave? And if they don't, it's because they're so ingrained in California that they're just going to bend over and take it. Oh, yeah, 5%? Okay. Yeah, a little bit. Oh, I didn't feel good, but it doesn't put them out of business either, right? Expecting them to remain, the billionaires to remain in the state as if they will happily and willingly hand over even more of their wealth surely must be facetious. And, that's what I kind of, that's it. Every single time I see a story about one of these socialist commies saying, we're going to tax this, we're going to tax that, we're going to tax this, I'm just like, you guys are just slitting your own throat. You are literally slitting your own throat, and we're watching you bleed out. I was watching Brandy Cruz this morning, Undivided. And as I do I've been watching a bunch of her, more than Tim Pool. And her thing was, this is not like a balloon popping. This is a slow leak out of a 3/4 full balloon, something like that. This is a slowly leaking balloon, having, the balloon's filled with all the taxpayers, and it's slowly going like that, right? That makes sense. I mean, and this is what you're doing. And the deal is that they've already taxed all the other folks. Low income, one way or the other, regressive taxation of $5 a gallon gas prices here in Washington State and in California. You're already taxing those who make the least amount of money. So you can't hammer on them much more. Otherwise, you're going to have a massive revolt. So they've worked out, let's go after big business. Let's go after wealthy people. Okay. Washington State or Seattle is going to do some tax like, if you're making over 125 grand, we're going to tax the employer. I mean, just going after big business who generates most of the tax revenue for the state. Yeah, let's go ahead and push them out. Greatest concept ever. I mean, it's that kind of thinking. But the reality is, they've got their back against the wall because they've overspent. They don't have the revenue coming in, and they got to squeeze the money out of somebody. They got to squeeze the money out of somewhere. And this is what they're doing. And it's just going to be more of a train wreck than we're already seeing. So we got the 2026 Billionaire Tax Act. The measure, recently listed on the Attorney General's website, would impose a one-time 5% tax on individual wealth exceeding $1 billion. Although the tax would be levied based on 2026 net worth, it would apply to billionaires who resided in California in 2025. So backwards. Oh yeah, we're going to tax you even though you've moved. So theoretically, it could not be avoided. Of course, billionaires are well equipped to defend themselves in court. So is this constitutional? Don't really. That's just straight up taxing people based on wealth. Do you think that might be challenged? Do you think there might be a tiny little lawsuit? The whole thing is, it's preposterous. It's absolutely preposterous. But what the libtards and what the progressives think is that we need everybody to pay their fair share. Yeah, but the top 1% are already paying 50, 60%, right? I mean, we just know that to be true basically across the board. They're already paying vast majority of taxes. Or their corporations are, or they own real estate paying taxes on. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. Payroll taxes, all of that stuff. Those are the folks that, have amassed huge wealth, sometimes by inheritance. Yes, sometimes that's true. But oftentimes it's guys like Jeff Bezos who didn't grow up with a ton, who did really well, and now he's leaving Washington. He has left the building because the building is imploding. It just is. You don't have the ability to squeeze everybody all the time and then wonder, why is everybody leaving? This doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. No, the left's got nothing. They've got nothing left to squeeze. Because you've spent all this money, with the pandemic, all these federal funds. Now that money isn't coming in, and you've got reduced cash flows from the standpoint of you've got businesses leaving, you've got revenue being restructured, and you've got less income coming in. You got less income coming in from real estate deals from downtown. You got buildings in these big cities that are empty. Chicago's a great example of that. Portland, downtown Seattle, you've got reduced income. So you got to go after big business, billionaires, trillionaires. But the flaw in this argument is obvious. If the state could impose a wealth tax once, it could do so again and again. So yes, billionaires might well leave if the measure passes. I think they're already in the process. I mean, if you're not, it's because you're like 75 years old and you're worth, say, $10 billion, 5% tax. Okay, whatever. I ain't moving. I'm staying here. Ain't moving. We're not going anywhere. But there's enough of these folks that I think that will move that'll just say, no, I'm not taking this. Like Jeff Bezos, I'm not taking this. I've got other options. Most of these people, if you're a billionaire, you've got multiple homes. You just do. Unless you're, unless you're like the Oracle of Omaha, right? Where you live in the one single in the house you've had since 1950, whatever. No. California has been bleeding residents and their tax revenue for many years with moves to states with no income tax or very low income tax. Florida, Texas, we already heard about that. Every 2 minutes, they gain a taxpayer. Arizona, Idaho, Tennessee, we got South Carolina, Nevada. And this article goes on to say, and even Washington State. Because everybody knows we're going the wrong way with taxes here in Washington State as well. I mean, Seattle just hired a socialist mayor who's vowed to just tax the heck out of everything. Got to have everybody pay their fair share. All right. Yeah. But those businesses are in the process of leaving. Amazon's already leaving Seattle and coming to Bellevue, where I am. It's just going to accelerate things. And then at the end of the day, they'll kind of stand around and go, that social experiment didn't work out again. Because this isn't the first time we've tried socialism. This isn't the first time we've tried leveling the taxpayer playing field. It's just not. California's own Chevron Oil Company moved to Houston. See you guys. Yeah, you guys have been hammering on big oil long enough. We're out of here. Phillips 66, shutting down our oil rigs, shutting down our refinery. We're not doing that anymore. Valero shutting down their Benicia refinery. Yep, not doing it. And further constricting the ability for California to produce its own gasoline. So they bring it in from Brazil. They bring it in from the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. But that's because when you have to virtue signal everything, instead of basing it on reality, this is kind of what you get. You get just a bunch of hokey ideas that don't really make any sense, but they do from the standpoint of, well, we're going to generate some more money right now. In comparison, Florida gains a new taxpayer every 2 minutes and 9 seconds, while Texas gains one every 2 minutes and 5 seconds. Massive outflow. New York loses taxpayer every 2 minutes and 23 seconds. Illinois, every 6 minutes and 4 seconds. Massachusetts, every 11 minutes and 38 seconds. New Jersey, every 14 minutes and 14 seconds. All right, so now we're at 14 minutes. New Jersey's lost one. Massachusetts, 1 and change. Illinois has lost more than 2. New York, more than 5? In California, like 8. 8. They've lost 8 taxpayers since we've been having this discussion. Yeah. But let's go ahead and tax billionaires because what could go wrong? What could go? They'll just stay. They'll just stay. Oh, yeah. Here's that article. Every minute under his watch. Just how about this one? Here's another one. This is exactly what we're talking about. This idea that, we're going to level the playing field. We're going to take those on the low end of society, earning capability. We're going to give them a big raise. This should work out great because California is so expensive because we've made it so expensive. So instead of focusing on the top down, let's go bottom up, right? The $20 reality check. How California's wage mandate fractured the fast food economy. California's $20 fast food minimum wage has triggered the loss of 19,000 jobs and a 14.5% spike in menu prices. And its mandate is forced automation, squeeze franchisees, and reduce total worker income, serving a stark economic warning for the rest of the nation. Washington State has seen that. Seattle has seen that. Hey, what could go wrong when you raise the DoorDash hourly wage to like $26? What happens then? Well, then DoorDash has the highest prices in what city? Seattle. Yeah. It's just, we got to tax people and we got to give people more money. And then when your job goes from, I use this example all the time, Starbucks. When the Starbucks workers are out there, doing their no kings thing and, Starbucks, my neck, my back, my paycheck is lack when they do that drill. And then corporate looks around at all the Starbucks stores and says, you know what? That one isn't making out all that much money. Plus, at $26 an hour or whatever it is that, they're demanding things be in Seattle for that type of employment. When corporate shuts it down, you go from whatever your hourly is to zero. And that's where I see the whole California thing going. You're going to reduce a bunch of billionaires. And do I care if billionaires leave California? No, I really don't. But it's one more example of you can't just tax folks and figure they're going to just take it, because they're just not. And then on the other end, when you do that to businesses, hey, you guys got to pay. Your minimum wage has got to be this. It's got to be XYZ. Well, then the wage goes up. Yep. All right. But if it's not sustainable, if it doesn't mean that those businesses can run it long term, it goes from 26 or whatever an hour, boom, down to zero because they close their stores. Just not that hard to figure out. But what we're seeing is this kind of logic across the board. And it's because they don't have anywhere else to essentially tax. Like, let's go Brandon Johnson. He decided, you know what? We're going to do a quickie $300 million property tax increase. And everybody just said, no. They literally just, boom, no, we're not doing that. Everybody said no, because they have been absolutely taxed out the you-know-what. Now, with Let's Go Brandon Johnson, with the way that he's run Illinois, Chicago into the ground, and J.B. Pritzker's run Illinois. Illinois lost 10,000 businesses, something like that, in the last decade. Like 10,000 businesses said, we're not sticking around for this. Billionaires aren't sticking around in California. Those, the top 1% with all the money, they're going to say, I'm going elsewhere. And it's typically a red-run state. That's what it is. It's a red-run state. So and one of the reasons I haven't put out any content is because I was down in Oklahoma City. Talk about a red city. Wow, that is something else down there. I was spending time with my parents, and I was supposed to record a bunch of podcasts, and I did record some footage of stuff that I saw that I thought was super interesting. But, some of the things that I saw were $2.15 gallon of gas. $2.15 for a gallon of gasoline. Tell me that is not just insanely cheap. Maybe you're used to that kind of gas prices here. I had a text from my son, Kieran, here in Seattle, and he lives in a really nice neighborhood in Seattle, wildly expensive. And there's like one gas station that's always more expensive because it's kind of out of the way. They know that they can get, the wealthy people to pay more. And his gasoline last week during Thanksgiving week was $5.09 a gallon. So to go from $2.15 to $5.09, it's like, okay. And the difference there is just layer upon layer upon layer of nonsense. And Washington has just this insane carbon emissions cap and trade, basically tax on gasoline. And it just jacks our prices of gas, through the roof. And that is a regressive tax on the folks, California's fast food workers. We need more money. Okay. And then their job gets eliminated because the companies can't make a go of it with that, high of a price point on their minimum wage. So, it's the same thing here in Seattle, where you've got gasoline prices at such a point that everyday folks who are trying to work the fast food economy, it's a tax on them because it's such a bigger percentage of their budget to fill up their car. and they can no longer do it. And that's why you've got all these people leaving California and going to the states we just talked about. Some of the other things I saw in Oklahoma City, I checked out a whole bunch of housing. The cheapest new construction home I saw was, I think it was $239,000. It was 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. It was in a platted development, $239,000. It just kind of, here in Seattle, I was talking with my producer, Darian, and we were talking about for $500,000 or $300,000, you might get a studio condo with homeowners dues of $500 a month. Just you get one room in a condo complex. And in Oklahoma City, granted, the lifestyles are wildly different, but the housing cost is so much cheaper. And in the states where they have no income tax, typically that's the deal. You've got housing has just been, going in Florida, going in Texas, and a bunch of these other states, Arizona, because people are leaving in droves because politicians are, working their way through the checklist of who they can tax to generate revenue, and they're running out of options. So what happens at the end of all this? The end, whatever that looks like. Well, the folks that are left are going to have an even more burdensome share of the tax responsibility, right? They're going to have to pay. You stay in California, you're going to have to pay. There's no other way to look at that. Now, California has the population where, you lose a few 100,000 people. Okay, yeah, you've lost some congressional seats, and that's why you've got Proposition 50, because they're trying to hold on to whatever political power they can, where Texas and Florida are picking up seats. They're each picking up about 4 seats. But when it comes to out-migration, folks left in California, you're just going to have to kind of come to that reality of this is just the way it goes, and this is just the way things are going to go moving forward. I'm going to get taxed more. Same thing here in Washington State. We're just going to get taxed more because you're going to have more and more people leaving that have covered the tax burden in the past. And they're going to say, quality of life isn't worth it. This just doesn't make any sense. What am I even doing? Why am I here? And they're going to move to places like Texas, Florida, Nevada, Arizona, the Carolinas, and Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City's got the Sonics, right? They got the Sonics. Other things I saw, Oklahoma City. There are 2 events that Los Angeles gave to Oklahoma City in the 2028 Olympics. Yeah. Slalom, canoe, and softball. I've got videos on that stuff. I'm gonna try and put together a video on that. I bet you didn't know that slalom canoe was an Olympic event, did you? Well, I walked the course. It's pretty cool if you're into slalom canoe. I'm not, but whatever. And the reason that is so that the Olympic Committee basically said, we want to have a more sustainable future. We don't want to have countries building these enormous complexes and then just basically, abandoning them to become, escape from New York style wasteland. Because it just doesn't make any sense. So Oklahoma City already has the world's largest softball venue. It's got 4 stadiums, 4 fields, and a central field that houses like 13,000 people watching it. And then you've got river sport on the Oklahoma River, really close to downtown Oklahoma City, that is an existing water complex. And you've got, this man-made, circular route that you can do canoe on. You can do slalom canoe. I don't even know what that is. But the Olympics are coming to Oklahoma City because California doesn't have any money. And Mayor Bass said, oh, yeah, we don't want to have to pay for, a water slalom course. And we don't want to have to build a softball stadium. Somebody else wants to take that responsibility. Oklahoma, you got it. You got it. You got it. So while California is giving things up, other red states are taking things in. Taxpayers. It's wild stuff. I mean, if you live in Seattle and you just turn on the media at any given point in time, there is some jackass continually telling us, the rich got to pay their share. Big business has got to pay their fair share. All business has got to pay their fair share. You can only do that for so long, and everybody takes a look at ditching out. This doesn't pencil anymore. Billionaires in California, guaranteed. They'll do the same thing. They'll move somewhere else. They're like, I got another 20 years on this earth, maybe. I'm not paying these taxes. This is absurd. And they'll leave, like Jeff Bezos. All right, that's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'd love to have you subscribe, do all that good stuff. And I will see you on the next video. Thanks again for joining. Bye for now.